Hey everybody, welcome back to Brent's Backyard Redneckery. You know, I've been wanting to make a blackberry wine. I've made a couple of the wines and beers in the past, but I found out that my grandmother had, about 30 pounds of blackberries. So I found a recipe, did a little bit of tweaking to it. I'm going to be making this blackberry wine, and so far, it looks like it's going to be really, really good. So we're going to take a whole bunch of those blackberries, turn them into wine, so get ready. I'll tell you what you need to do. Let's get into it. Here's everything we're going to be using. We've got 20 pounds of blackberries that I got from my grandmother. They've been frozen and thawed, so we're good. We're going to boil 6 gallons of water to get some of the chlorine out. We've got yeast nutrient. We've got pectin enzyme, Camden tablet, and some acid blend. We've got our EC 1118 yeast for our wine. And then we've got 12 pounds of pure cane sugar. All right, so the first thing we need to do here, clean out our bucket. I've got a half a gallon of water in there. Just gonna put in a little bit of dish detergent. We'll get this rag nice and wet. Just gonna go around the whole thing and get this done, and then we'll rinse it out. Once we get it all rinsed out, we're gonna toss in a second half gallon of water. We're gonna toss in about a teaspoon of sodium metabisulfite. That's basically, I've got 10 Camden tablets crushed up and in there. We're going to stir that up, and good Lord, it smells terrible. Once we've got all that mixed up like that, we're going to take our lid and put it on. And basically what you want to do is just take it, shake it all up in there, make it blow up like I just did. And I'm going to shake it up a little bit more, drain it out outside, let it turn upside down in my bathtub until it drips dry. All right, once your thing is dried out, what we're going to do is take a wine bag, set it down in here, and so it doesn't slip and fall, you want to grab this little doohickey here and pull it tight so it's in there good. Then we're going to take all of our blackberries and drop them in there. Get them all in there, the juice and everything. We're just going to dump the bags in it. Okay, here. So we've got blackberries, juice and all. Take each one of these bags and drop them down in there. And each one of these bags I have is 5 pounds because I'm shooting for 20 pounds total. We're going to make 5 gallons of wine. So I'll go ahead and get all these dumped. And then we'll go to the next step. Once you got all your blackberries in there, go ahead and loosen that up. We're going to take this bag, we're going to leave it in here. We're going to pull this drawstring tight on there. This bag is going to stay in our bucket. So now if that's in there, we'll move on to what we're going to do with our water. One thing I do need to do before I do all my water is crush these things as much as I can. It's going to be a little difficult in that bag, and I don't want to stick my hands down in there because then they'll be purple. Okay, so with our water, this is the 6 gallons roughly that I have. I'm going to take a gallon at a time to put in here because that's all that will fit. And I got to get it to a boil and put part of my sugar in it. So this is up right next to being a boil. And since I'm supposed to dissolve all the sugar in 3 gallons, I'm going to do about half of that. Once we've got it all dissolved like this, we're going to take it and pour it into our wine bucket. I'm just going to take it off the burner and pour it directly in here. And once I get it all finished, move it all in there, and then we'll pour in the remainder of the not hot water on top of that. Our water's topped up in there. I still got a couple more things to add, but just check my specific gravity. And right around 1.100. Now I've got all that in there. We're going to put in 1 teaspoon of yeast nutrient and get that good and stirred up. And then what we're going to do is let this rest for about an hour to cool down a little bit. All right, the last step we're going to do tonight, I've crushed up 1 Camden tablet. I'm going to toss it in there. I'm just going to circulate this through here. And what we'll do after this is just put a towel over it so it's covered up for the evening. We're just going to put this on there so if there's any kind of gases, they'll escape through it. And since I got it downstairs, the cats won't bother it. So we'll check it in the morning. Okie dokie. This has been sitting for 12 hours. Now we've got to put in a half teaspoon of pectin enzyme. Got to stir that in. So I'll finish stirring this stuff in and get it covered. Then in 24 hours, we shall pitch our yeast. All right, it has been 24 hours. We need to take one specific gravity reading before we toss in our yeast. So I'll make sure I got enough here. All right, that should do me. All right, here, let's see what we got. 1.110. Let's go pitch some yeast. Pitching yeast sounds a little bit more complex than it actually is. Really, all we gotta do is sprinkle it all over the top. And once you've got that on there, we're gonna put our lid in place. Once we got a lid on, we're gonna put on our airlock. Drop that little guy in there. And he's gonna want to float whenever bubbles come out. See how it'll bounce around like that? Put a little lid on here. And now we'll let that sit for about 4 days, but we're going to stir it up once a day for those 4 days. So this is the 4th day of this wine. Thought I'd show you guys what this stuff looks like. The blackberries start floating up to the top, but everything is fermenting like it's supposed to. I still have bubbles coming out of my airlock, and once those bubbles stop, then we'll know we can take this bag out, let it drip in here, and do our first racking. So while it's fermenting, that's what you're going to get coming out of your airlock. All the bubbles are being released from where the yeast is breaking down the sugars and turning this into wine. Here is the carboy we're going to be using. It's a 6-gallon carboy. It's been out in the garage, so I'm going to have to clean it first. All right, so I've got about a half a gallon of hot water in there, 5 Camden tablets, and what we'll do is we'll just pour them down into this funnel, shake it down in there. Probably run a little water in there to get the dust out, but we'll just swish this around, get it ready. I'll dump it out and let it air dry. So here is the end result after fermentation. And we're going to have to take a specific gravity reading before we rack this. So go ahead and grab us a cup of this stuff and see what we come up with. See that red marker there? Wine, that's where it should be, and that it's a little bit above that. All right, before we go any further, I got to try and get that bag of blackberries into that colander. We're going to have to let this drain. I'm hoping it's not too heavy to knock that down in there, because I have a feeling it just might be. 1, 2, 3. Come on, baby, don't fall. I'm going to let that drain. We'll start racking that stuff. This has been draining for about 45 minutes. A little bit down in there, maybe about a half a gallon. So I'm going to go ahead and dump this in my primary fermenter and rack it. Oh, and one more thing. That's what your blackberries are going to look like whenever you're finished. All right, so we'll pour these remnants in here. Nice and cloudy. All that stuff we'll get rid of later on in the process. So whenever you're racking your wine, you want it to be just slightly higher than your carboy. You're going to take your siphon, auto siphon. I'm going to slip this hose on there. If it won't go on, you can use hot water on it to make it spread out a little bit. It'll go on a little easier. I'm standing on the dining room table, but well, maybe my wife won't come in. So to get your auto siphon started, I'm going to give it a couple pumps, and we're just going to let it do its thing. It's going to suck out everything and leave probably about this much sediment in the bottom. So we'll let that thing run, and then we'll check it and see how it's looking. So far, we've got a couple gallons in there. Still got a whole bunch to go. So once this is all finished, we'll see how it looks. All right, so I finished it up. As you can tell, it's really cloudy. So I still got a lot of racking to do. There's a whole lot of fruit chunks in there. So I think for right now, I'm going to pour this back into my primary fermenter through a fine mesh sieve. All right, so I have re-racked this, strained out all the blackberry chunks. Last thing we have to do here, put this little bunghole thing in, and then put our airlock on there, just in case we have anything coming out. And we're going to let this sit for a few months until it all clears out and clarifies, and then we'll get it bottled. Let's see what this is tasting like right as of now. All right, well, it's definitely alcoholic, and you can smell it. It's very, very tart. And let it sit for a while, see how it ages. We'll go from there. All right, that wraps up another episode of Brent's Backyard Redneckery. So today we've taken these blackberries from my grandmother, 20 pounds of the 30, to turn them into a wine. Now, at the point we're at right now, we've racked the wine. We're going to have to let it sit for a little while, and then we'll re-rack it into the primary fermenter. And we'll go back and forth until we get to the point that it's ready to bottle. So until then, if you guys like this video, learned a little something, share it with your friends, give me a thumbs up, come back next time. I'll tell you what you need to do. Have a good one.